I am Julie. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and let's see, I was on Team Baltimore, and I have to say that the Cancerto5K program changed my life. I was not a runner prior. I still am not really a runner, but it definitely taught me to reach outside my comfort zone. So.
I'm Chris, and I'm Team Howard County, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012. And I had been a runner, and cancer sort of sidetracked my view of myself as a runner, and I felt like my body had kind of let me down because I had always thought if I was healthy and took care of myself that maybe I could avoid getting cancer. So when that happened, I was reminded that what I could control was my desire to get back into the running world. And so Cancerto5K and I connected, and like Julie, it absolutely changed my life.
I'm Thaddeus. I am a small cell lung cancer fighter. I'm still fighting. And I was part of the Washington, D.C. Northern Virginia team. And I was a runner, but once I was diagnosed, I really couldn't run. But Cancerto5K got me back into the thick of things, and I'm looking forward to this season.
My name's Kristen. I was on the Washington, D.C. Northern Virginia team with Thaddeus last year. I'm a leukemia survivor, and I was a big runner before cancer. I actually coached running and still coach running at high school. And so Cancerto5K kind of helped me reclaim that part of my identity. And I was not able to exercise at all. I was barely able to walk during my treatment. So it was really helpful to have that support and structure that Cancerto5K provides.
Any questions?
Let's hear it.
So I'm Caitlin from Boston. We did our first season last year, and it was great. And I think one of my biggest sort of concerns as a coach, and Kristen, you might realize this, so we had some runners on our teams, and all of us coaches, while we were, athletic to a point, we were not also runners, and I know I look like a world-class athlete, I am not. And so for me, it was almost a little bit intimidating as a coach, and I didn't know if, for you guys, for the value of the program, I would imagine it's more in just sort of the social aspect and just kind of getting to the goal race and completing it. But did you ever feel like you weren't getting the level of coaching out of a coach that you might have expected in that particular environment?
So the question was for people who are returning to running or identify as runners, do they feel like they're getting enough support from the program? I definitely feel that I did. I think a lot of people who are going to be returning to exercise are trying to find what's called the new normal. And so their running and their body is most likely going to be different than before cancer. And finding that new normal, that new, what your body's now capable of, requires a different type of coaching than an elite athlete is going to get. And that's what Cancerto5K specifically provides. So I wouldn't be intimidated or worried about coaching somebody who identifies as a runner or who was really in shape beforehand, because they're going to be trying to find what their body can do now, which is probably going to be different. I don't want to say worse, just different and their training and how much they can add every week is going to be different than they could do before.
Just to piggyback on that, in Howard County, when I joined, we had several survivors, all at very different levels. And our coaches tried to match us up with somebody that was similar to us in terms of where we were coming from and where we were that day. And so if it was a day where we felt like walking, they'd match us up with somebody that wanted to walk or somebody that wanted to walk run. And so that's what I loved about it, was that it really, I didn't ever feel like I was being pushed too fast or being held back. It was always very flexible, and our coaches worked with our ability and how we felt that day. And that flexibility made a big difference for me wanting to come back. I didn't feel left out or exhausted after the workout.
Or bored.
Or
too,
bored.
Okay, good.
Never bored.
I think my coach was really good about actually trying to rein me in a little bit, because I was like, well, I'm a runner, I'm gonna go run, and he was like, you need to walk. And he was absolutely right. And I think it was important that the coaches really viewed us as just people where we are now, and not as someone who was a runner and had cancer and now is trying to run again. Like, I'm just Kristen, and I'm going to try to run this 5K. So I think kind of that fresh start was really nice.
Mm-hmm. And my coaches, they built me up, because I had to start very slow, because I gained a lot of weight and less lung capacity. So I had to start really slow. They started me with 50s to 100s to 200s to a lap. And to me, that was a very big accomplishment, because at first I thought I was being held back, because like, she's a runner, and she could run 30 minutes straight without stopping, speeding up the whole time if she wanted to. But I was doing 100s, but they never really told me to hold back. They wanted me to stay on my level, and I really appreciated it.
Is there a question here?
Yeah, I have a question for you. With regards to like your running before cancer and after, did you ever struggle when you were trying to come back, and how did your coach help you through it? Like, 'cause we do have a couple of those. A couple of now who since graduated, and they did go through that too. They're like, I used to be able to, throw down 10 miles in my sleep, and now I can't even make a mile. I mean, I kind of struggled through that. I mean, was the best advice that your either Sherpa or coaches helped you kind of shelf that before, and running, and not beat yourself up?
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
So the best advice I got from a coach or Sherpa about, I'm going to say not comparing between running before and after, I think was to really focus on current positive accomplishments. And I'll be honest, I've been in remission for almost 2 years, and I still struggle with that a lot. And running is actually very emotional for me right now, because I'm constantly comparing to what I did before, but I didn't do that during the Cancerto5K program, because everyone around me was just really positive about, like, look what you did today, and look what you're going to do in a couple weeks, and just really bringing the focus back to current positive accomplishments, and just not even bringing up what I could do before, because it's not relevant to what I'm doing now.
Right.
But I think it is important for all the coaches and probably Sherpas too to understand that this is an emotional journey for cancer survivors as well, and the emotional recovery from cancer is on a separate timeline from the physical recovery. So, I mean, I don't look like a cancer patient anymore, and I have my hair and I work my full-time job, but you're looking good, Thaddeus. But I have an emotional recovery that is still happening. And so that is going to, I think that's really going to affect some days how a person feels at practice. And if they're not motivated that day, it might be related to their emotional recovery that goes with this. Would anybody agree with that?
Absolutely.
I agree, definitely.
I think especially if somebody's kind of recently in remission, they may not understand that emotional recovery that's going to come with it. It really hit me like a ton of bricks that I, like 6 months after I was in remission, all of a sudden this all emotionally hit me, and I was in counseling and on a support group and started Cancerto5K to work on that. So that can be a separate challenge from the physical challenges that your participants may be dealing with.
I think it's so true, because I lived it too, and like what happens in the medical world is that you're like going, appointments here, phone calls there, waiting for this, and what's my scan, then all of a sudden your treatment's over and you're like, okay, bye. And then it's like, well, hold on here. And you don't even kind of know how to process what to do next. And it's kind of a delayed thing. So sometimes like this has happened to us with our participants, like something will just trigger something, and whether it's random or just being out there, but we definitely did, see it, done it too, where it's like, I didn't see that coming, but this Cancerto5K, it was pretty awesome to see how some of our runners would show up on a Sunday morning, and you could kind of see it in the look in their eyes, like, what's up, and then once all of a sudden they started running, like it really is, it's such a savior for that PTSD.
And exercise is such a great stress reliever that I think the exercise plus positive support at the trainings is really invaluable, I think, for the participants.
And it's really valuable too for some of the runners. Thank you for, talking about it too, that never ran before, and then they see, like seasoned athletes in their mind, like, gosh, they're still having the same struggles as me. It kind of, like, you help them, the other runners, in ways that, your peers, that you really do.
I have a question. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, but having gone through the program, in your personal experience, is there something that you wish had, is there any improvement that you could see from a survivor perspective? Is there something that that we as coaches could learn from or could do for future survivors? Was there a workout you didn't like, or was there a learning moment that?
Well, the question
I know
was.
it's kind of a vague question, but it's
Open question.
Yeah, the question was, is there anything that coaches could improve from us survivors? Well, one thing I didn't like, because I caught shin splints really bad. Like the first day out there, 20 degrees, shin splints. But I kept getting the shin splints every week. But I didn't like speed walking. It hurt even more than running, speed walking. So that is one thing, me personally, but
and I know
speed
it's a
walking.
personal question, but I mean, there's definitely room for us to grow from knowing what experiences you guys have. Thank you.
And also the Omen, they gave us running shoes, which was my biggest help. If they could get a little bit earlier,
In the season.
a little earlier in the season, that'd be a big help, because that was really, to me, the biggest thing between me finishing at this time and that time, because it just, running helps. It's completely shut out my shin splints, and it really helps. Like the shoes was perfect. That's like one of the best deals.
That was nice.
I think for me, I mean, the program was just so great, but one of the huge takeaways that I really loved about my season was we often played games while we were running, and it kept me distracted from the actual training program, because I really don't like to run. And the group kind of knew that, and so we played a lot of games where we would put stickers on each other's backs with like celebrity names, and then you didn't know who was on your back, and you had to ask questions as you were running, and try to figure out who was on your back. So it was kind of like fun. We did a scavenger hunt once where we used the app Goose Chase, and there were points for, the coaches had done a little bit of legwork ahead of time, and one of the places we had to run to was down here to Under Armour and take a group shot, and you upload it and you get points, and we had split into teams. And so you're getting a workout in, and you're not really, but you're having so much fun that you didn't really think about it. Those were the days I really loved. I also loved coming downtown. I live in northern Baltimore County, so to run in an environment where I don't normally run was very distracting for me, and I didn't think about like the fact that we were running. We used to run down by the water to the harbor, and it was beautiful. So if you can find like those fun places to kind of take little field trips to run to, that would be great. Chrissy.
What was your favorite moment in the Cancer5K program that you can remember? I'm sure there were a lot, but what was one that you really want to highlight?
I have, so I've done Cancer5K twice as a survivor and once or twice as a Sherpa. But honestly, the most fun I have is when I cross the finish line and then we wait at the finish line for the rest of the survivors to come across. I love cheering everybody on and seeing how excited they are when they cross the finish line. It's maybe because I've had experience crossing finish lines on my own prior to this experience. For me, crossing was exciting, but watching everybody else cross was absolutely exhilarating.
I think same as Christina said. Are you going by Chris? I just called you Christina. That's really weird. Coming across that finish line, my first 5K after I'd been diagnosed and I actually ran the whole thing was such a huge accomplishment for me. And I think one of the great things is one of my closest friends now is my Cancerto5K coach, and she's moved on to do other things and lives in Florida, but I still stay in contact with her. And so that relationship has continued, and I really cherish it because she is the reason that I have challenged myself to do other things outside of Cancer5K.
For me, I think it was meeting and getting to know each and every one of the Sherpas. That was the coach's plans. We ran with each Sherpa at least once. I had the same Sherpa at least a couple times, but you did run with each Sherpa at least once, and that was fun, and getting to meet the other survivors. And that was also around the same age as me. I'm 24, 23 last year, but and it was really fun because like we get to know each other. We met each other every Tuesday and Saturday. Tuesdays.
Remember when we saw Nene?
Nene. We
We were running at Washington Lee High School, and he plays pickup soccer on Tuesday nights at Washington Lee, and we were running around. And Thaddeus always had a Wizard shirt on.
Yeah.
So I was like, Thaddeus, is that Nene?
$60 million man just playing pickup soccer with us regular
With people
folks.
half his size.
Literally, he's this tall. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
I actually was usually paired with the same Sherpa, and so I really liked that because we got to know each other, and I didn't have to explain my story every week. I didn't have to say every bit of treatment or where I was every single week. We could just talk about like the dates we went on that week or whatever we did. So I really liked that, building that relationship over the season, and just like having a running buddy that just felt like a running buddy and not a cancer Sherpa who had to carry my water bottle, which was nice.
Yeah.
But
that segues into a question I have in terms of your cancer diagnoses and all of that. Is it better to have somebody asking some questions every now and then, like your Sherpa while you're running, or is it better to be able to provide some of that information up front in like a group setting, like upon the first meeting? I mean, as coaches, we know we've got a spreadsheet, you know, so-and-so had this diagnosis and they're in treatment, they're not in treatment, so we know a little bit of information. But in terms of how people want to share that, I mean, I guess that's a very personal thing too, but.
So I would say as far as sharing and how to sort of when the right time to share all of that, we, both seasons that I participated, that first meeting, we had like some icebreaker, you know, with, you know, you take so many pieces of candy and type thing. I think sort of getting it out there up front is great. And then I think, as the weeks go on, the conversations sort of happen organically. So you don't really have to say, how are you feeling? Because I have to say, as a cancer patient, you really don't want to be asked, how are you feeling?
No.
And so I know for me, if there was something that was weighing on me, cancer related, I felt comfortable sharing it with the group and sort of, venting it out and getting it out there. But, I think one of the greatest things about the program is, it is like a support group. And so whatever the issues were that I kind of brought, I had a lot of complications along the way where I had to stop training and restart training. But it didn't deter me from coming to the practices. So I think some of those conversations just happen organically, and I would let them happen as organically as possible. But I think initially to sort of get it out, it's like the white elephant in the room.
Right. Because I know in our first season in McLean County, we did have a survivor who was very, who's actually one of our coaches now. She was very reluctant to even identify it as having cancer or even being considered a survivor of it. But that's where I saw the beauty of the program is her coming out and merging in with the group. But at that point, I think in that group, we all did know where everybody kind of was at that point. And so, but I've seen in other seasons where, we may not have done some of that in the beginning so much.
If I can add to that too, just as having the history that I have with the program. But some of you I have not met. I'm Holly Shoemaker. I'm actually the founder of Cancer5K. So I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
guys being here and sharing your experiences with us. And I've been shaking back here just because it's so moving to hear. But what I wanted to add to the conversation is from a coach perspective, yes, we all do have a background, but as a coach, I would caution you to remember that we are being entrusted with their personal health information.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want
No,
to.
I'm not. I was just saying that as a premise to say that we really always have kind of focused, and maybe Nicole can speak on this, on letting it be an organic experience. So we're all here to run. I mean, yes, we're all brought together because it's a free program for survivors. So you're not gonna run in the program as a survivor if you're not going through or have been through cancer. But it definitely is, the general focus is to let it be organic because everybody deals with it in such a completely different way that it does come out. I mean, and it can be the weirdest thing. You can be running, I can remember running and you listen to the conversations around you and so-and-so mentions a reconstruction and then somebody behind will turn around and say, hey, I have that, let me come and run with you. Or, it's all about, what your date. Yeah, I have tons of date conversations with
They're the best.
Yeah, but it really can be a very organic thing. But I think as coaches, it's also good to remind the Sherpas, that we're all here to run.
Right.
It's not your obligation to say, I mean, it's one thing if you run with them all the time and say Thaddeus is just feeling a little slow, you can be like, hey man, how you doing? I mean, how was your day? The Sherpa might say that, but I know from my perspective as a survivor, I think if anybody had ever said to me, so, did you have treatment today? Or I would have been like,
yeah, that's,
I mean, I think Lynn said it really well in her presentation that I think we really want to be treated as athletes. I mean, that's what everybody signed up for this to do a 5K, and that's the end game here. So I think, we show up to training and have a coach to learn about running. And yes, cancer brought us all together, but, I mean, I'll be honest, I certainly wanted to be treated as an athlete because that's what I was trying to get back.
I remember at the end of my second season as a survivor, running and not even knowing who the survivors were in the group. Like, I probably would wear this shirt because I had it from the season before, but the people, it was like it didn't even, had they not told me or it didn't even come up for some people, and that's the way either they wanted it to be or it just happened that way. And I thought in a way that's kind of nice that it can be either up to them or just an evolution of the relationship. Maybe I didn't get to know that person as well, they didn't feel comfortable, we didn't talk about it. But that's the beauty of it, is that it has a place for everybody in how they want to present themselves and what's most comfortable for them in their experience.
I think that's such a good point to make sure that our Sherpas know too, because we had a couple that like, one of our Sherpas, he's a Chicago firefighter, and he's like, I'm really nervous to be a Sherpa, and I'm like, what? Really? You know, like you're
Just treat the person
you're
like an
just supposed
athlete.
to, you know,
Somebody else for
fixing
running.
it.
Cancer shouldn't be the topic of conversation every day because we don't want to
Mhm.
talk. We don't want to think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
We
so-
want to think about running.
We
Yeah,
live
so
it
that,
every
I mean,
day.
to take that stress off of the Sherpas and just be like, you don't have to worry about it, just.
We're not there for therapy.
Yeah,
Y'all
Right.
just feel fun.
yeah.
We probably have time for one more question.
Well, there's one in the corner.
That was literally the
Oh.
exact question I was gonna ask, just wanted to, how to like breach the subject of what you're experiencing. When some of us don't necessarily have the same frame of
Right.
reference, but
Yeah.
you guys hit everything.
I think something to think about is, and this is sort of coming from an Almond staff perspective, is we're about stories, and it's really about a person's story that really connects them to everyone. And so I know, like with one of our programs on Key to Keys, you get in the car and it's like, okay, we have this much time before we get on our bikes. What's your story? And it just sort of starts that conversation without saying, you know, what's your diagnosis? Because they might not want to share that, but maybe they had a parent that was diagnosed and they might be ready to share that piece of it, but not their piece of it. So it's about telling a story, opening that door, making them feel comfortable. And in the end, I mean, it's just about those human relationships and being better and being human.
We had people who at the end in Boston, like some of the survivors were like, what the hell is a Sherpa? Like, who are these people? It was just like, they were there, they were running with us. But it told me, one, I've been trying to do a better job explaining the program at the very beginning, but they were, in a way, it was very like, they're here, this is great,
Right.
whatever. So it was ours was very organic and perhaps needs a little bit more structure, but it was like, I remember that, I have what is a Sherpa? I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, volunteers.
You have a glossary of terms.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, just coming from the parent side of things, one really important thing about the program for me was there were a couple times that I did bring my kids with me, and it was very welcoming. And so that was like one of the best things. I mean, one time I ran with a jogger, and I don't know if you've ever ran with a jogging stroller. It sucks. It was really, really hard. But, you know, John and I had a schedule, you know, conflict or whatever for whatever reason. But, like, the whole team sort of, like, welcomed not just me, but, like, my kids. So,
Can I
special.
share one thing? Before?
Yeah.
So I had the experience of joining Cancerto5K when I was still going through treatment, and it was a different set of coaches that we currently have. And so I have the perspective that I didn't feel as connected relationship-wise to the first set of coaches. And that made a big difference for me. And that was probably the place I was coming from, less about them. But when I joined again a year later and we had the coaches we currently have, for me, I had so many mental obstacles. I had 3 little kids. My youngest was a year and a half old. And I was like, what am I going to do? I can't exercise. You know, and I had every reason why this just wasn't going to work. And the coaches said, yes, it will. Bring them. And one coach had a 16-year-old. She'd come. She'd watch the 2 older ones while the youngest was in the jogging stroller. And one of the coaches would say, I'll push the stroller. You run with your Sherpa. And it was the first time that I really felt like, well, first of all, I can't say no because they're taking all these burdens from me. But it also reminded me that the burdens are here. The burdens were ones that I was placing in front of me, not ones that really existed. And because of the relationships with the coaches and the Sherpas and my openness to allow them to help me, set me free to do, you know, what I wanted to do and to accomplish that goal. And that, my first 5K after cancer, I set the goal of finishing under 30 minutes. And my Sherpa, at the very end, he looked at me and he said, Chris, you better run. Because I came in like 20 seconds to spare. But it was the process of going from I can't do this, there's so many reasons why I can't, to I can, let me show you. And for me that was very liberating.